I am mute, yet I married New York's most reckless playboy heir. Everyone said I was beneath him, even he believed it himself. In our 5th year of marriage, he fell hopelessly in love with a college girl, even reforming his ways for her. So on an ordinary night, I asked him for a divorce. After that parting, 5 years passed before we met again. I was now someone else's wife. Yet he clung to me like a madman, claiming he'd searched for me for 5 whole years. In the 5th year of his marriage to Asher, he fell for a young girl. Because she was truly the apple of his eye, he shielded her carefully, rarely letting her be seen. Only his closest friends and I knew of her existence. Just like now, the moment I entered the bar, I saw the girl nestled obediently in Asher's arms. Her red lips parted slightly, and her bright eyes sparkled with a seductive innocence. As she rose to head toward the restroom, Asher's best friend John shifted the conversation with a half-smile. "So, when are you finally divorcing that mute?" he asked. "Don't tell me you spent 5 years getting revenge and ended up falling for her?" Asher, slumped against the sofa back and fiddling with his lighter, paused at the remark. He tugged at the corner of his mouth, his voice dripping with impatience. "Impossible. The mere sight of her makes me sick to my stomach. The only reason I haven't filed yet is because I'm worried the old man might do something to harm Billy." With that, he lit a cigarette. Thick, bluish-white smoke billowed from his mouth, obscuring the expression in his eyes. Still, it's classic Asher. But you've got guts, refusing to go back like that. Honestly, that mute might not be able to talk, but she's got a decent face and figure. You could have had some fun with her. Might as well enjoy it while you can. The man beside him chimed in, stroking his chin with a sly grin. Hearing this, Asher seemed insulted, delivering several hard kicks to the other man while snarling, "What the hell are you talking about? I wouldn't touch her with a 10-foot pole. Besides, she's mute, like a wooden post. What's fun about that?" Seeing Asher's icy glare, the man gave an awkward chuckle and wished away. After that, no one dared bring up the topic again. Only when the girl returned did the tense atmosphere begin to ease. Watching Asher wrap his arm around her waist, completely disregarding her shyness, forcing her to straddle his lap and resume their earlier intimacy, I smiled silently and turned to leave. After Billy appeared, Asher stopped coming around much. He wouldn't take my calls, and even when I went to his office to confront him, he avoided me. So to finalize the divorce smoothly, I went to Billy's workplace. In the coffee shop, Billy beamed with a radiant smile, her bright eyes and pearly teeth shining. Even in her faded jeans, her captivating youthful energy was undeniable. I didn't know if Asher had mentioned me to her, but I knew they'd moved in together. A 300-square-meter loft in the city center was their love nest. Billy, however, prided herself on self-respect and refused to spend Asher's money, insisting on working part-time to support herself. Lost in thought, I heard her approach and ask sweetly, "Hello, what would you like to drink?" I averted my gaze and typed on my phone. "Please tell Asher I'd like to see him. My name is Aurora." Realizing I couldn't speak, Billy gave an apologetic smile. But after reading the message, her expression abruptly changed. But quickly, her bright eyes curved into a smile, and with a slightly forced expression, she asked again, "Ma'am, you must have the wrong person. So, what would you like to drink?" It was clear she was forcing herself to stay calm. So Billy knew I existed. She had simply chosen Asher over morality. That night, Asher did show up. His usually cool, dark eyes blazed with anger as he yanked my wrist, demanding harshly, "Aurora, what did you do to Billy? Why was she crying so bitterly? Why did she insist on breaking up with me?" Confused, I shook my head and reached for my phone to type. Before I could finish, he snatched my phone, shoved me to the ground, and roared, "Don't fucking tell me you didn't, Aurora. I hate it when you play innocent, when you play the victim. A clown like you has no right to be near my Billy. She's 1,000 times better than you." Even though I no longer cared about Asher, being humiliated like this still stung. My heart felt like it was being squeezed by an invisible cord, leaving me breathless. Unable to speak, I endured the pain, struggled to my feet, and staggered over to the cabinet. I pulled out the divorce papers I'd prepared long ago and handed them to him. When he showed no reaction, I pressed my lips together, scribbled a few words on the drawing board, and held it up before him. "Asher, let's get divorced quickly. I'm truly exhausted." Asher froze at the sight, his gaze shifting from the board to my face. After staring for a long moment, he sneered, his expression dripping with scorn, "Aurora, you're playing hard to get again. If it weren't for your snobbish mother exploiting our ancestral debt to force me into marrying you, I wouldn't have been pressured by the old man into this marriage. Now everyone mocks me for marrying a mute cripple. Don't act like you're being magnanimous. You've brought this upon yourself." His words cut deep, painting me as utterly worthless. After marriage, disliking me and seeking revenge, he refused to divorce me while indulging wildly outside. He even brazenly kept young models as mistresses, parading each new conquest before me. Only Billy's arrival made him rein in his behavior, gradually settling down. His feelings were crystal clear. With Billy, he was cautious and protective, afraid she might get hurt. But with me? He took advantage of my stress-induced aphasia, knowing I couldn't argue back, and constantly hurled insults at me. Remembering those words from the bar, my fingers tightened unconsciously around the drawing board. I took a deep breath and began writing again. "I'm filing for divorce tomorrow. Asher, don't push me. I know you care about that girl. If everyone finds out she's a homewrecker, do you think she can handle the online rumors? Do you two even have a future?" Seeing my resolve, Asher ground out each word like a warning. "Aurora, you dare threaten me?" Unmoved, I signed the divorce papers as if I hadn't heard him, then stepped past him to leave. But as our shoulders brushed, his strong hand seized my wrist. His low, mocking voice whispered in my ear, "Aurora, you're still just as selfish. People like you deserve to be hated and despised for the rest of your life." Asher's words were venomous, and I saw undisguised contempt in his eyes. Truthfully, after 5 years, I still couldn't fathom why Asher hated me so intensely. Even if he'd been forced into marrying me, I only learned after the wedding that he'd never wanted it. Even after learning the truth, I immediately filed for divorce. But he refused, sabotaging it repeatedly while vowing he wouldn't let me off easily. This time, with his weakness exposed, my firm threats sped up the divorce proceedings. The forms just needed review, a matter of waiting it out. The next morning, the moment we stepped out of the marriage registry office, Asher called Billy right in front of me, his voice laced with tenderness. "Billy, I want to see you." Our eyes met. I flashed a twisted smile, my lips forming a silent yet unmistakable word: disgusting. Caught off guard by my retort, Asher's face turned an icy shade of blue, his entire aura thick with cold, menacing tension. After hanging up, his thumb and forefinger suddenly clamped down on my jaw, lifting it slightly. His menacing gaze fixed on my face as his voice turned icy. "Aurora, when it comes to disgusting, who could possibly beat you?" Surrounded by his scent, trapped and unable to move, I opened my mouth and bit down on the web of his hand. Soon, a salty, metallic taste spread through my nostrils. Taking advantage of Asher's pained release, I scrambled away, kicking my heels into motion. Once around the corner, Asher vanished from sight. I lifted my gaze to the wall of light and shadow, slowly reaching out to catch the starlight-like warmth. A silent smile touched my lips. After calming my nerves, I headed to my mother's place. As expected, the moment I opened the door, the entire villa reeked of thick smoke and alcohol, the air thick with haze. Learning from the maid that she just hosted a male model party, I went straight to the bathroom, hauled a large basin of cold water, and dumped it over her. Jolted awake by the shock, she saw me and immediately erupted. "Aurora, are you trying to get yourself killed?" After cleaning up and emerging from the bathroom, she suddenly asked, "So, still no sign of a baby?" Seeing my lack of response, she frowned deeply, tapped my forehead, and scolded me with disappointment. "Aurora, what can I even say about you? You can't even keep a man. That's the best you can do?" Not wanting to discuss this, I covered my ears, silently interrupting her. Seeing this, she broke down completely, her eyes reddening as she demanded, "So you still blame me? Blame me for forcing you to marry Asher?" Without waiting for my answer, she continued her tirade. "Wah. Aurora, you're just like your dead father, heartless. If it weren't for wanting you to have a future, I never would have begged Asher to take responsibility for you." With that, she clutched her chest, her face as pale as paper, looking utterly devastated. Here we go again. Every time I resisted, she'd threaten suicide. Ever since Dad's accident, she'd changed completely, cruel to me and to herself. Back in college, when I didn't come home for summer break, she swallowed an entire bottle of sleeping pills just to make me look like a heartless, ungrateful bastard in everyone's eyes. Everyone sided with her, saying how hard her life was and how much she loved me. As her only family left in this world, I couldn't be heartless. And so, starting in my sophomore year of high school, I was mentally controlled by her for a full decade, unable even to resist. After our bitter parting, I rushed home, packed my things quickly, and planned to go to another city to paint. By the time I returned, the divorce papers would likely be finalized. That evening, Aunt Lee brought milk and casually asked, "Young madam, why so suddenly?" Knowing she was sent from the ancestral home, I offered no explanation, only that it had been decided long ago. I'd simply forgotten to tell everyone. After she left, I stared at the solitary high school uniform hanging in my wardrobe, my heart clenching. That sophomore year, witnessing my father's murder left me mute, and I endured 6 months of relentless bullying at school. They locked me in the bathroom as if it were a joke, only releasing me when the security guard came by on patrol at dusk. Unable to speak, my only plea for help was pounding frantically on the door. It wasn't that I hadn't told my mother or the school, it was just that after a period of calm, they only grew more vicious. So gradually, my mother stopped intervening. She even said, "No fly lands on a seamless egg," implying I should reflect on whether I had some fault. That's when Asher appeared. In front of everyone, he declared he'd protect me. As the school's unrivaled bully, his words carried far more weight than the teacher's half-hearted warnings. After that, those bullies never dared openly torment me again. As for this school jacket, Asher saw them dousing me with cold water and couldn't stand it. He took it off and tossed it to me. It was the only warmth during those painful years, so I never brought myself to throw it away. Now, just touching it, those deliberately forgotten painful sensations awoke again. My heart felt like it was being stabbed repeatedly by an invisible needle. The pain made me instinctively crouch down, hugging myself tightly as silent tears fell. During my sketching trip at the guest house, Asher called once, but I didn't answer. Life without him was calm and passed quickly. 30 days flew by in an instant. On the day I picked up the divorce papers, stepping out of my friend's car, I was about to thank him when a sharp pain shot through my wrist. Turning, I saw Asher standing there, expressionless. "Aurora, are you blind? How could you accept such trash?" He shot a glance at Roger in the car, his words spilling out with raw malice, his arrogance reaching its peak. I froze, staring at the inexplicably furious Asher. Unable to hold back, I let out a laugh, my lips curling into a mocking sneer. Seeing him about to speak, I grabbed my phone and typed a note for him to see. "You read disgusting. Since we're already here, let's just get this divorce processed quickly. Save us both the discomfort. Asher suddenly erupted in rage, going berserk. "You're this eager to divorce me? Fine. You've got a new lover, haven't you? This man, right?" Still unsatisfied, he continued spitting venom. "Too bad you're unworthy. A worthless piece of trash like you deserves to wallow in the mud, never getting." Suddenly, a sharp slap echoed through the air, cutting off his venomous words mid-sentence. It was the first time Asher had ever been struck, leaving him momentarily stunned. 5 fingerprints quickly etched themselves into his pale, handsome right cheek. When he finally snapped back to reality, his eyes darkened with fury, veins bulging prominently on his temples. Meeting his murderous glare, I enunciated each word deliberately. "You're so disgusting, it makes me want to vomit just looking at you. Regardless of whether Roger liked men, even if he were straight, Roger and I had always been pure and innocent, not a hint of ambiguity between us. Unlike him, who hadn't gone a single day without a partner in the past 5 years, filthy as hell. Born with a silver spoon in his mouth, Asher had always been treated like a prince, never having endured such humiliation. He yanked my wrist, his voice hoarse and icy. "Fine. From now on, we're done. Hope you don't regret it later," begging me to spare you a glance. Asher spoke with absolute confidence, convinced I was madly in love with him. I wrenched my hand free, shrugged, and smiled, stepping inside before him. Half an hour later, as we emerged from City Hall, Asher tossed a $5 million check at my feet like charity, calling it compensation. Just as he thought I wouldn't take it, I bent down and picked it up. Asher's expression turned complicated. He wanted to snatch it back but felt too ashamed. After a pause, the corner of his mouth curled into a sneer. "Ha, you really are as shameless as ever." His sarcasm went in one ear and out the other. Refusing money would be foolish, it was what I deserved. I wasn't about to play the high and mighty card just to save face. The day I quietly left City A was sunny and breezy. Asher called while I was en route to the airport. The phone rang and stopped and rang again, 3 times in total. After blocking him, I concealed my tracks and hitchhiked for 2 days and nights to a distant northern city. There, I mustered the courage to start my own comic creation, learning to heal myself and move past the pain. I encountered Asher again 5 years later. He appeared suddenly, saying nothing, just staring intently at my slightly rounded belly. Not wanting any more entanglement with him, I dropped my smile, set down the grapes I was holding, and started to leave. But he strode toward me, closing the distance step by step. When he reached me, Asher lowered his eyes. In the shadows, a faint dark circle formed around his gaze. He gritted his teeth and squeezed out a cold sentence, "You actually got married." His gaze never wavered from me as he scanned my 4-month-old belly inch by inch. His voice turned icy. "Aurora, how dare you get married? And now you're carrying a bastard." The word bastard sent a wave of fury coursing through me. My control snapped. My hand shot up, landing a sharp slap across his face. The sharp crack echoed through the fruit shop, drawing stares and whispers from the customers. Yet I remained unmoved, meeting his gaze directly as I replied coldly, "This is my husband's child. It exists because of love, not as a bastard. If I hear you utter another vile word, I won't hesitate to slap you again." Startled by my sudden voice, Asher froze, staring at me for several seconds before croaking, "Aurora, you can actually speak?" I didn't respond, only gazing at him coldly. At that moment, memories flooded back, him constantly calling me a mute, mocking me alongside others. Looking back now, Asher was a rotten person to begin with, utterly unworthy of my affection. Yet he seemed oblivious, his eyes shining with astonishment. He suddenly chuckled softly, murmuring, "That sounds beautiful." Then he reached out, gripped my shoulder, and pleaded hopefully, "Aurora, say one more word, please? I want to hear it." "Fuck you." I struggled and slapped him across the face with my other hand. It was the first time I'd ever cursed, my disgust evident in every syllable. Ignoring Asher, who turned his head slightly and stood motionless, I walked past him, ready to leave. But after only a few steps, he grabbed my wrist tightly. His hoarse, strained voice whispered in my ear, "Aurora, I regret it. I regret divorcing you 5 years ago, setting you free." Seeing my unmoved stance, after a long pause, his voice trembled, "We've known each other nearly 10 years. You even had a crush on me since high school. I don't believe you could forget me so easily." I didn't turn back, only rubbing my stomach as memories of past pain flashed through my mind, until Aaron's figure appeared at the end. I smiled, each word clear, "Why couldn't I? Asher, do you know why I can speak now? Because I've fully recovered from the pain of what happened to my father. Whether it's you or my mother, I don't care about either of you anymore. What healed me is my current husband. It was only after meeting him that I found a home truly my own and learned what real happiness feels like. I didn't want any connection with him left, so I turned away and stated it plainly, I have a partner who shares my joys and sorrows. Soon, our child will come into this world. I'm happy now. So please stop clinging to me like a leech. It's truly annoying." No sooner had the words left my mouth than the baby inside me stirred, kicking several times as if it had heard. My words were ruthless. Asher's face paled, but quickly, his hands, which had been hanging limply at his sides, clenched into fists. He turned his head away and insisted, "Impossible." He swallowed hard, his dark eyes fixed on me. "You kept my high school uniform all this time. You even pretended to be an online friend chatting with me, comforting me when I was down. Aurora, admit it. You're madly in love with me. You can't forget me at all. The man you married now is just a substitute for me, your second best choice." Asher spoke with such conviction, as if I truly harbored deep feelings for him. But the truth was, my feelings for him were nothing but gratitude. Because he appeared during my darkest, most helpless moments, I grew increasingly fixated on him, even putting him through rose-colored glasses, convinced he was perfect in every way. The day I finally gave up on Asher was the day we got married. Forced into marrying me, he dared not resent his father, so he vented all his anger on me instead. That night, drunk and red-eyed, he grabbed my shoulders, insisting I had ruined him. After he shoved me away, my forehead slammed into the table corner. Seeing the pool of blood that followed, I resolved to abandon him. For the next 5 years, no matter how despicable Asher behaved, I remained indifferent and refused to let him touch me. Because I didn't care, I couldn't be hurt. My thoughts drifted back to the past with Asher, and I knew with absolute clarity that I had never loved him. With a faint smile, I shook my head and spoke my true feelings as if cutting open my heart. "Asher, I never loved you from the very beginning. I only love the father of my child. He was the first person I ever loved, and he remains the one and only irreplaceable presence in my life. The words hung heavy in the air, freezing the room into a deathly silence. Asher forced a smile, but his eyes betrayed an unmistakable sting of humiliation. After a long pause, his voice raspy and hollow, he sneered, his lips curling into a fake grin. "Aurora, you're ruthless. Playing me like this. Too bad. I took you seriously." So, Asher trailed off, his gaze returning to the cold detachment of 5 years ago. When he looked at me, it was as if I were prey within his grasp. Born into privilege, Asher was accustomed to acting recklessly, never holding back. Startled by the certainty in his eyes, my heart skipped a beat. I snapped, "What exactly do you want?" When he remained silent, I pressed my lips together, took a deep breath, and spoke calmly, "Asher, there are countless women in this world. Don't forget Billy exists. You broke countless rules for her back then, even going so far as to divorce me. So now you come here and say all this to me? Don't you think it's ridiculous and shameless?" As I laid bare the absurdity of our past, Asher's face darkened to the extreme. Yet he still tried to justify himself. "That's not how it was at all. You were the one pushing me, provoking me. That's why I divorced you in a fit of rage." Perhaps fearing I'd say something final, he cut me off before I could respond, continuing, "I searched for you for 5 whole years. I even rejected Billy's advances and seduction for you, breaking her heart completely. That's why I won't let go. You can only be mine." Asher's tone was so forceful it brooked no argument. After speaking, he fixed me with an intense gaze, his eyes deep and his voice tinged with an emotion too subtle to decipher. Meeting his gaze directly, I looked back at him, my eyes brimming with raw disgust and contempt. "Whether I regret it or not doesn't matter anymore, because I never loved you. You only brought me pain." The words barely left my lips before the room plunged into dead silence once more. Asher's grip tightened relentlessly, squeezing my wrist until it throbbed, then went numb. Yet he seemed oblivious, his mouth opening with pained effort as he pleaded humbly, "Aurora, please divorce him. I'll change. I promise I'll treat you well. I'll never hurt you again. I've thought it through. If you can't bear to terminate the pregnancy, you can give birth. I'll accept it for your sake, Asher." I snapped, cutting off his absurd notion. Each word was clear and deliberate. I only love the child's father. Between us, it never truly began. Enough. Before I could finish, Asher cut me off harshly. His expression darkened instantly, forcing me to look at him. With brutal force, he gripped my face, intent on roughing me up in front of everyone, heedless of the consequences. At the critical moment, I struggled, lifting my foot to kick him hard in the groin. A pained cry erupted as Asher doubled over. Quickly creating distance between us, I said coldly, "Asher, you've always been utterly revolting." His pride wouldn't let him stay any longer. He walked away in a hurry, his figure quickly disappearing from my sight. After he left, I browsed for a while. When I paid and stepped out of the fruit shop, I noticed a light drizzle had begun to fall. Just then, Aaron called, saying he was on his way and asking me to wait where I was. As the captain of the Criminal Investigation Division, Aaron had been extremely busy lately, yet he never neglected me or the child. His love was quiet and profound. I remember our first meeting 4 years ago. Because I was seen as mute by others, I was targeted by someone with ill intent and nearly met with disaster in my apartment. It was only because he, living across the hall, noticed something was wrong that he saved me when my life hung in the balance. We started as friends. After what happened with Asher, I had no intention of getting involved with another man and deliberately avoided him. Yet he grew increasingly kind to me, so quietly that if I hadn't stumbled upon it myself, he would never have told me. Standing at the fruit shop in trance, I watched Aaron, tall and slender, with sharp, defined features, approach me under a large umbrella. I couldn't help but smile. Aaron looked puzzled, raising a hand to ruffle my hair. "Why so happy?" he asked. I didn't answer, just wrapped my arms around his waist and buried my face against his chest, utterly dependent. After a long while, I finally murmured, "Because seeing you makes me happy. Aaron, it's so good to run into you here. And thank you for liking me so passionately back then." Meeting Aaron finally made me believe that people destined to meet truly do cross paths one day. Catching the meaning in my words, he pulled me closer in response, smiling wryly. "Then I should thank you too, for never giving up on yourself." Stepping out of his embrace, I naturally slipped my arm through his as we walked side by side. In that instant, I spotted Asher standing in the corner. Though 30 meters away, I couldn't make out his expression. Yet I felt those jet black eyes fixed on me, their intensity overwhelming. In the car, I turned my head to look at Aaron in the driver's seat, preparing to pull away. After a moment's thought, I decided to tell him what had just happened. As husband and wife, we should trust each other. I didn't want Asher to affect our relationship, it wasn't worth it. So he's having second thoughts? Aaron asked softly, his voice steady as he gripped the steering wheel. On the surface, he seemed as calm and composed as ever, but I noticed a hint of coldness in his eyes. After meeting Aaron, I had mentioned Asher to him. We both considered him insignificant, never giving him a second thought, and never expecting to encounter him again. Noticing Aaron's jealousy, I blinked, leaned closer, and whispered in his ear, "I don't think it's regret. It's just pathetic." Soothed, Aaron chuckled softly, his handsome face still bearing its usual gentle grace. "Hearing you say that, he really is pathetic." Fearing Aaron might overthink it, I quickly grabbed his sleeve and said earnestly, "I only love you." With him, I simply mistook gratitude for love, that's why I married him. Aaron replied softly, "I know. I know your heart belongs only to me and our child. So don't worry about me overthinking." He turned the steering wheel, guiding the car onto the road. After a moment of silence, he finally asked, "Did he do many things to hurt you back then?" I knew Aaron was feeling heartbroken. After all, when we first met, I was in a terrible state, especially after the burglary, which triggered a relapse of my mental illness. Leaning back in the seat, I shook my head. Taking his large hand resting on the gearshift, I paused before replying, "Not really. I simply didn't care about him. Whether he was promiscuous or kept mistresses, it didn't affect me much. It was his foul mouth that hurt, he constantly hurled verbal insults at me. Back then, I couldn't get divorced no matter what, and my mom kept pressuring me to please him. That's what made me miserable. But luckily, he met another woman later and grew more and more invested in her. That's how I managed to escape and start a new life." Just as we pulled up to a red light, the car stopped, and Aaron turned to look at me, his throat clearing slightly. "We'll be happy forever. We will." Understanding his meaning, I flashed him a dazzling smile. Even before I resolved to be with Aaron, I knew he was fundamentally a good man, cultured, principled, destined to be a great husband and father. Days later, Asher somehow got Aaron's number. He called while Aaron was lying on my belly, listening to the baby's movements. Aaron and I exchanged a glance before putting the call on speaker. Asher's arrogant voice boomed, "You must be Aaron. I'm Aurora's ex-husband." "So?" Aaron's tone was icy, showing no regard for Asher. Caught off guard, Asher grew frantic on the other end. "In my opinion, you can't make Aurora happy. So give her back to me." Seeing Asher's shamelessness, I laughed in anger. Just as I was about to retort, Aaron's gaze silenced me. He picked up the phone, stood up, and walked to the floor-to-ceiling window. His voice was calm, "What gives you the right to think that?" Without waiting for Asher to respond, he curled his lips in sarcasm, "Is it because you sleep around with other women? Because you hurt Aurora? Because you and your bunch of scumbag friends gang up on her?" Aaron's words were always sharp, especially when directed at Asher. A few sentences were enough to crush his momentum. Ignoring Asher's furious outburst, Aaron continued, "Aurora has told me about you. I know you publicly humiliated her for another woman. In this world, you are the last person who deserves to be in her presence. Because you are filthy." Faced with such humiliation, Asher retorted, "But Aurora likes me. You didn't know that, did you? She's had a crush on me since high school. She even kept my school uniform jacket all this time. They say the first love is the hardest to forget. Do you really think you can compete with me?" At this point, he actually began to gloat, looking as if he were something special. Aaron scoffed, his face darkening with contempt. "People like you belong only in memories. After all, even a 3-year-old knows that no matter how beautiful a memory is, it remains just that, a memory. It can never be relived, just like your marriage to Aurora." Asher had intended to drive a wedge between Aaron and me, but ended up humiliated and speechless, hanging up the phone without another word. My return to City A was for my comic book signing event. But before it even began, news of my mother's suicide reached me. By the time I arrived at the hospital, her body was already cold. Roger told me she'd become obsessed with a male model over the past few years. After he ended things due to her possessiveness, she acted on impulse and took her own life. She'd only meant to scare him, but it backfired. She passed away before even reaching the emergency room. In the hospital, gazing at the woman before me, her features delicate, her face serene as if asleep, my emotions churned with complexity. I could no longer find traces of her former gentle, warm self in her. Ever since I could remember, I knew she was a woman who couldn't survive without love. That's why, after Dad's accident, she drowned herself in drink and pleasure, getting played by men, even going so far as to sell me, her own daughter, to the Asher family. Aaron, maybe I really am cold-hearted. Because even though she's dead, I still can't forgive her for the pain she caused me back then. I smiled faintly, my emotions muted, my tone calm. Aaron still took my hand, as if to comfort me. Seeing this, the tears in my eyes could no longer hold back. They flowed out, growing heavier and heavier, as if venting all the grievances of those years. I couldn't completely ignore my mother's death. After all, she had once truly loved me. But all I could do now was handle her funeral properly, ensuring she departed with dignity. If my first task upon returning was to arrange my mother's funeral and legally reclaim her assets from that male model, then the second was Billy suddenly showing up and spouting a bunch of vague nonsense. Only after returning did I learn she and Asher had split 5 years ago, after he'd hit her and walked out without explanation. Just like the Billy sitting across from me now, her smile bitter. Now, fresh off a failed startup venture, she bore none of her former youthful vigor. Her eyes held only weariness and guilt toward me. She sipped her black coffee before speaking. After you two divorced, I thought Asher and I would be happy forever. But because you vanished without a word, he changed completely. After that, she glanced at me with a complex expression before continuing. Back then, I couldn't understand how someone could change so suddenly. I harbored a vicious grudge against you, even wishing you'd meet with an accident and die, never to appear before Asher again. That way, he belonged to me forever. But as you vanished, he went mad searching for you, growing increasingly impatient with me. That's when I realized he'd always loved you. It was just pride, fear of ridicule from those around him, that pushed you, who was mute at the time, further and further away. So your departure actually forced him to see his own heart clearly. What exactly are you trying to say? I cut her off, sick of hearing about Asher. Seeing my bluntness, Billy paled slightly, her voice faltering. Actually, I came to see you today to apologize. Because I did play the third wheel, even resorting to underhanded tricks that pushed your already precarious relationship with Asher over the edge. Her voice was hoarse, but her tone was earnest. Hearing this, my hand holding the cup froze. Finally, I asked, so that anonymous text was from you? Just to lure me to the bar and make me witness you and Asher getting intimate? She bit her lip but nodded, her embarrassment palpable. I truly loved him. That's why, after learning about you. I'm so sorry. I lifted my eyes, leaning back in my chair. It's in the past now. And honestly, I should thank you for showing up. It helped me cut ties with Asher completely. But, my tone sharpened. But I can't condone your actions. I just can't empathize with the other woman, especially when she knows exactly what she's doing. I know. Because even I can't accept that part of myself. Billy lowered her head, curling her lips in self-mockery, her voice tinged with pain. The 30-minute conversation dragged on because I hadn't accepted her apology, leaving Billy feeling somewhat resentful. So much so that just before leaving, she suddenly turned to me and said, after you disappeared back then, Asher was devastated. He was in a state of pain and collapse for a long time, unable to find relief. So he really did love you. Oh. I nodded, giving a perfunctory acknowledgement. It was clear Billy still loved Asher. That's why she'd come to apologize to me, why she'd recount Asher's 5 years of devotion to me. But why? Why should I pretend all that hurt never happened, or even respond to him, just because of his so-called devotion? I'm the type who holds grudges. I could never forgive them. After handling the necessary matters, I returned to City B where Aaron was. Once back, I focused on nurturing my pregnancy. By October, our child was born, a beautiful baby boy. That very night, Asher called to announce his upcoming marriage. A true business arrangement, he explained, driven solely by the bride's unrequited love for a deceased first love. Aurora, as you said, those who disrespect love don't deserve happiness. This is my punishment. Because I wasn't sincere enough, I lost you. Now I'll live with regret for the rest of my life. Asher choked on his words, nearly unable to continue. Tell me, he pleaded, his voice filled with hope and sounding pitiful, if I hadn't been so stubbornly proud back then, would we be happy now? Would we even have a child together? But I refused to indulge him, replying flatly, absolutely not. Because on our wedding day, I gave up on you completely. So Asher, stay out of my life. Don't bother me again. And I wish you happiness. I hung up. That was the last call I ever had with Asher. The next time I heard about him was in a news report about a car accident. He died instantly, his hand clenched tightly around something. No matter how hard they tried, they couldn't pry it open. But I recognized it at once, an MP3 player. It was the birthday gift I'd given him during our senior year of high school, when I was just an online friend. The suddenness of it all made me sigh. I couldn't help but murmur, Asher, I hope in your next life, you truly learn how to love someone. Mom, just then, father and son waved at me, laughing and joking nearby. Coming! I smiled back and hurried toward them. Choose one person, bear deep affection, that is my conviction. Thank you for watching. Subscribe for more romantic stories.